All right, Cavalry, we're doing a gear review. This time we're looking at some thumb rings. This is a few different thumb ring makers and a few of their designs. It's definitely not all that's out there, but hopefully the stuff I say about this will help you as the end user make a more informed decision about what you want to get in terms of what style of thumb ring or what maker you want to go with. And hopefully we'll promote better design and accountability with ring makers. Okay, so let's get started with custom thumb rings. I really like the project these guys have going on. I think they're genuinely enthusiastic about thumb rings. They've got a lot of different designs. They're both enthusiastic about recreating historical designs and being innovative. There's merits to both. Custom thumb rings has always been a near miss for me. I'll tell you the first reason. Number one is if you look at this wall, it's flat all the way around, and so there's a sharp edge here. And the reason why that matters is because when the string engages the front of the ring, it tips it up and it tips down the back. So under any kind of appreciable load or with any high volume shooting, that sharp wall back there digs into the thumb. I think that kind of in general, thumb ring makers, they make the hole go this way, right? But that's not actually the way the ring sits when you're using it. It sits this way. So they should cut the hole this way. If you look at this wall, it's flat this way, like a jewelry ring would be, right? Like it sits perpendicular on the finger, and it shouldn't. It should sit, when it's under load, it should sit canted. So if it's going to be flat, it should be flat this way. That's what I would like to see improved. Or it should be round, right? It should just be round. If you look at, I'm gonna pull another one out here. If you look at the Vermeil, these guys are nice and rounded in the back. And so when they sit on the thumb, it's a better conformity to the shape at that angle. Right, so for that reason, the shallow hook thumbs that I've dealt with custom thumb rings have been, they've been uncomfortable. And also this is just, it might be a my thumb kind of thing, but I've never been able to just like fill the inside cavity comfortably with my thumb. This is a little cool lock, we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, just the way this fills the shape of my thumb, like it doesn't fill the actual round of my thumb. Right, so what happens is I kind of wind up taking a lot of pressure on the front of the thumb with like the corners of the thumb instead of with the whole pad of the thumb, or the whole front knuckle of the thumb, I should say. So, and that just might be a my thumb thing. Your thumb might be shaped differently, but this angle thing I think is that could be improved regardless of what your individual thumb shape is like. So we got 4 different shallow hook thumb rings here. They all work pretty much the same. This one has a spur on it. It's called a Chinese spur. And the way this seems to work is when you've got the arrow on the string, the spur traps the arrow right in front of the nock or right against the side of the nock. And I'm not really sure what question that answers. Like I'm not sure what problem that solves. It might be that with the specific gear that the designers of this ring, the original designers of this ring, whatever specific gear they were using, there was a problem that it answered. But I've done a lot of shooting, and I've never been like, gosh, I wish I had a thing on the side of my ring that held the arrow down. I don't know. I'm not sure what question it answers. And when I'm shooting fast or high volume, it's one more thing that I've got to line up. So I'm not sure that this doesn't create more problems. The Chinese spur. This is the Sarmatian. It's got this lanyard hole in the back. There's a theory that the lanyard attaches to like a wrist brace, and that the wrist brace lanyard kind of holds the ring down and holds some of the weight of the string. And here's the thing, I don't buy that, and it's because of this. When you pick up string pressure with the thumb ring, the back end, which is the end that the lanyard is attached to, drops. So that would loosen the tension. So in order for that lanyard to work, it would have to be pretty tight, pretty far back, right? And I don't want that, because that's going to pull my thumb ring down, which is kind of one of the nuisances of thumb ring shooting, is that the thumb ring will fall down. And we'll talk about that when we talk about metallic rings, because they're heavy and they tend to fall down more. Is it a lanyard ring? Maybe, and probably if it is, it's just so you can take the ring off and not lose the ring. That's my theory. I could be wrong. Otherwise, it's just a basic. It's a basic shallow hook thumb ring. And this guy, it's called the tongue. It's got this extra flat spot on it. In practice, shooting this or other shallow hook thumb rings, I didn't really notice a difference. You've just got a bigger surface for that string to rest on, before a bigger trigger, before that string slips off. And then finally we have this no frills Turkish design, which we've already looked at here. If I had to shoot with one of these seriously, I'd shoot with this one. But yeah, as I explained, it suffers from the fitment problem that I've had with their rings so far. This is my only Korean style ring, Sukakji. The way this works is you hold the string down with the bar, and then you trap the bar with your finger. So it looks kind of like this. And on paper, I like the design. I couldn't really get this one to work out for me. Is it that I don't like the design, or is it that I don't like this rendering? It's hard to say. Again, near miss. I would like to see this hole get cut this way, or this get rounded out, so that there's a less aggressive edge pushing against the back of the thumb. And maybe if we can look at, these seem too closed in the front, but that may be just from my thumb, right? Other people might find this more comfortable. This is the Ming Chinese thumb ring from Temujin Archery. I got this guy because it looked like you could use it as both a deep hook thumb ring, and you can tell it's obviously a deep hook thumb ring because of the aggressive saddle here, and that you could use it as a shallow hook thumb ring, which technically you can. It does catch the string under here pretty well, and the string does clear the saddle when you shoot. It's just that I think design-wise, is there such a ring that can effectively, comfortably be used as both a shallow hook and a deep hook? I don't know, and it's because with a deep hook thumb ring, you've got the pressure this way, and with a shallow hook thumb ring, the pressure is this way, so you've got it coming up from in the front and coming down in the back. And in particular, on this ring, there's a very tight little kind of circle at the bottom that your thumb clears, and then it's kind of hollow. So there's all this like space up in here. It's kind of a shell of a ring, really. And so if you try to shoot this with a shallow hook, this kind of thin lip on the bottom of the ring, at the entrance of the ring here, it digs into the back of the thumb. As a deep hook, again, because it's kind of hollow, it's got a lot of volume, but there's not a lot of surface on the inside to grab the thumb. So this is a plastic one. It doesn't weigh anything, so it stays put. But I would be concerned that with one of the metallics, like a brass one, they make a brass one for $32. That's pretty cheap for a brass ring. But for a heavier one, because it's kind of hollow inside, there's not a lot of surface contact. I'd be concerned about that falling down. And then this one's, just because of how deep it goes, it would be really difficult to readjust back to its position. This sudden drop between this tight ring at the opening and then this big, like, kind of cavernous hollow just beyond, it doesn't like mate up to the thumb comfortably for me. At $15 for the plastic ring and $32, like I said, for the brass one, this one is the least expensive. So if you're interested, it's a low investment. Here's a handmade horn ring from Oksu Bekir.
when you're looking at handmade stuff, typically you're paying a lot more money for it, and yet when you account for the man hours, the craftsman's not making as much money. So, consider that when you're spending more money on something that's handmade. It's great that some people are kind of willing to take the hit to do things by hand. I think there's some beauty in that. And by the way, the ring that came out is really nice. It's a really quality ring. It's horn, which is more robust than plastic. And he assures me that this can handle 100 pounds. I didn't get a chance to test it. I'll talk about why in a second, but it's got good shape. It's got good wall thickness. The curvature is really nice. The polish is really nice. It's elegant. There's nothing unnecessary on this ring. It's well made. Okay, he made a good ring. And by the way, he makes really beautiful arrows too. They're too short for me, but here's the thing. And let me talk about this. So this little piece of leather here is called the kulak, or the tongue, not to be confused with the tongue on the tongue ring from custom thumb rings. But the kulak, it serves a couple functions. One, when you're shooting, that string rests in between. I'll show you. The string rests kind of at the juncture of the thumb ring and the thumb itself. So there is some string contact against the flesh of the thumb. At higher poundage, and especially with modern skinny strings, that can kind of dig. And to some extent, that string is going to brush the thumb. So my dominant hand, I've got a little bit of like a callus strip here from shooting shallow hook. So this, to some extent, answers that question. It's a bit of a thumb guard, and also the inside, it creates a bit of a soft spot to kind of keep it padded, and not so much for comfort, although maybe that too, but it helps it conform a little better and give it a tighter fit. So it sticks a little better, and the actual rough surface here, helps it stay in place. So you know by now how I feel about rings slipping down. And the kulak, that really answers that question. A ring is a lot more convenient and a lot more comfortable with a piece of suede on the inside, holding it in place and giving it a little bit of padding. Here's the thing about kulaks. So this actual piece of leather is about 1 millimeter thick. So I'm going to use my actual size here for demonstration. I wear a 25 by 22 millimeter ring, and that fits me perfectly. I'm going to grab another one here. All right, that fits me. It just fits me. Like it really just perfectly fills that space exactly. All right, that's the perfect ratio. That's the perfect size. If I add a piece of material to that 25 by 22, and it's 1 millimeter thick, this is now 24 by 22, and that's what happened here. So if you put a piece of material in there, you need to have longer length here. Now, what some people do is they'll keep the same ratio. So, for example, this 25 by 22, that ratio, and they'll go up a whole size. So then it's 26 by approximately 23. But then this short axis is too big, right? So the ring will kind of choke up to an uncomfortable place on your knuckle. And that might depend on how flat around your thumb is. That ratio, that 25 by 22, that's fit everybody that I've fitted for rings so far. But some people must have flatter or rounder thumbs, right? But okay, so for me, that 25 by 22, which is standard, that fits perfectly. In order for me to have a kulak, I have to make this axis wider without making this axis wider. So that's what I requested, is can we make it so that this is 25 millimeters after this is added? And I don't know if there was just miscommunication because it was lost in translation. English is obviously not his first language. Or if he just was busy and that was not a typical request, and he forgot. But Look, like I said, $100 for a thumb ring, that's it's not enough for the maker, but it's still a lot of money for me. And now I have a ring that doesn't fit my dominant thumb, and I can't use it on my non-dominant thumb either because now it's too big on the short axis. So I basically got a thumb ring that in its current state I can't use. So, and then when I contacted him about it, he said, no problem, you fix it. So if the roles were reversed, I would have been mortified and would have made a new ring and sent it out to him. You know, he just told me to fix it myself. And by the way he said to fix it was to take a material off of this back wall. Now there's a lot of material back here, and potentially I could do that, but I'm going to point out that's where thumb rings tend to fail, is on that back wall. So I don't want to take material off the back. I've got to take material off the front. And that means I have to remove this cool lock. I have to shave it down. You know, I can fix this, and I probably will, and give it another review. I'm just disappointed that I got a custom piece and it came to me and I can't use it, and now I have to customize it myself. And I'm not saying not to do business with this guy. I'm wary about doing business with him again because basically I'd have to spend $200 to get one usable thumb ring. And I am saying you might spend a lot of money and wait a long time and get a ring that doesn't work and that he tells you have to fix yourself. But with that said, he does make beautiful work. All right, and finally we have our Vermeil archery rings. So there are a few different designs here. I'm gonna get this kind of odd one out of the way first. We've got a Manchu. A Manchu ring is it works kind of the same as a shallow hook ring does, but farther down. So it adds about an inch, maybe over an inch, depending on the size of the thumb ring, to your draw length. It spreads that pressure out across more thumb. It's more cumbersome. It's a lot more material on the thumb. I'd be willing to play with Manchu style thumb rings more, but I'll tell you my problem with this one is you see these striations here. I don't know for certain that this was 3D printed, but it seems 3D printed to me. And the way the 3D printers work is they basically drop a thread in a coil to make the shape. And if you just leave that raw like that, then you get these striations like it's woven. The striations are going across the direction that the string has to pass. So the string is going against the resistance of these little striations, and that's going to create a lot of extra drag and wear. I don't think that's a good design. I think this has to be smooth. The outside of these thumb rings has to be smooth. All right, this guy is the Lotus, and if you look, the shelf where the string rests is like non-existent. There's nothing there. If you compare this, for example, this is like the opposite of the custom thumb ring tongue. This has this extended shelf, so there's this flat kind of underwall, and then there's this extended wall where the string rests and passes. And this guy doesn't have that at all. It's like you completely erase the whole shelf. So when I'm shooting with this, it feels like I'm going to drop the arrow. It feels like I'm going to accidentally let the string slip. Now I will point out that the string doesn't actually sit on the outside of the shelf like this when you're shooting. It's kind of overlapping the hole like this. And I never did actually negligently shoot an arrow. I never did let an arrow slip accidentally, but I always felt like it. So for me, this one kind of feels like a little too hair trigger, but I think that's the purpose, is it's a more hair trigger ring. If you know your technique, if you're pretty comfortable with shallow hook technique, and you're really indexing that thumb up to the ring, and you want just a really nice, light, crisp release, a really hair trigger where you just breathe on it and it slips out, this might be a good option for you. I'll say too, one of the things that I prefer about shallow hook thumb rings is that they tend to have a smaller ramp, and when you're shooting under speed, this ramp, if it's too big, it tends to catch the string, right? So this has too much ramp for me, and again, this is a personal preference.
I don't like this hair trigger thing, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It depends on you. But I've never liked these long ramps because it's just more stuff to interfere with arrow and string handling. All right, next we've got a couple of these. They're really kind of the same ring, but slightly different shapes. A lantern on the left, and this is their Turkish on the right. And you know, the differences are so slight when you're actually using them. They're almost imperceptible. This one has a bit of a higher rear wall, so maybe when you're shooting a lot, there's less pressure there. But you know, because it's just the corner there, I'm not sure if that's really a thing. And I think because the front is flatter, it might be a little easier to index, you know, to get kind of used to where the edge of that thumb is, because you see it's like it's almost closer to the natural shape of the front of the thumb. So when you're handling things kind of fast, and you're handling the arrow and you're trying to get around the string, it's maybe a little bit easier to kind of know where the front is if you're not used to handling the other one already. And what I mean by that is see how this has like a kind of a bulge on the front. So you know, your brain doesn't immediately know where that is, right? Like developing sensitivity for that is going to take some handling. So I don't know if maybe this is a bit of a shorter learning curve. This one might be more intuitive when you're first picking it up, but I don't notice it now. And I will say where all the kind of maybe nuanced differences might be imaginary, might be like hard to measure. I do get measurably, consistently better performance on the Turkish. Not by much, it's like 10 feet per second faster, but I do get slightly better performance on this guy, which is measurable. I will say that when I bought these, they were both $17 US, and now the lantern is 20 and the Turkish is 16. So this one actually performs a little bit better. Okay, and then I've got one metallic one, and this happens to be the lantern. The only reason why is because they did not make the Turkish in metallic in my size. This is for my heavy shooting because these guys, they will break, you know, if you put them under enough force there. So if you're shooting higher poundage, I recommend going with the material that's better than just plastic. It doesn't have to be heavy like metal, right? Because the problem with these is they fall down. Right, and then you wind up, because the bows on the other hand, you wind up kind of trying to like one hand get it back into position, and that's a real hassle. I always prefer a lighter ring. I don't like the metallic rings because they're heavy on the thumb when you're actually handling arrows and trying to move fast and trying to have sensitivity and precision, and they tend to fall down. Okay, all right, so that's my shallow hook thumb rings. What about our deep hook thumb rings here? I've got one in metallic and I got one in plastic, and that's because just the vendor where I bought it, that's what they had. This is a pretty basic deep hook thumb ring. You can tell by the pretty aggressive saddle here that it's a deep hook thumb ring. This has a pretty comfortable pad on the inside for the thumb to rest against. I'd say it conforms pretty nicely. Because of the inherently more material that they use on deep hook thumb rings, the fact that this is metallic it makes it pretty heavy, right? So if I'm trying to be fast and I'm trying to be sensitive, this is a lot of ring, and it will tend to slip down. So now that depends. How fat is your thumb? How swollen is your thumb? You know, did you put tape underneath it? A lot of the deep hook thumb ring shooters like to put tape under their ring, I guess, to keep it in place, also to kind of give it a little more padding. It's pretty basic. If I had to go deep hook, this one, it fits the bill, no frills, and it's pretty comfortable. Now this guy is a bit of a special design. This is the Victory and pop quiz. Is this a deep hook or a shallow hook thumb ring? Right. At first glance, it kind of looks like it could be shallow hook, but you can tell because when you look at it from the side here, you can kind of see this. It does have this sort of saddle. That's where the string rests on the thumb ring. Now, I think the theory behind this one is when you're shooting, this kind of throat that they have notched out here kind of gives the flesh or the tendon of the thumb a place to go. So when I'm grabbing the string, which is what you do with a deep hook thumb ring, you grab it, there's like a place for that flesh or for that tendon to go. And so I guess it's more comfortable that way, but look, the problem I had shooting this guy was if you miss in the slightest, you can kind of accidentally hook that little wing. So, you know, when you're shooting under pressure, shooting high volume, shooting fast, that little kind of snag is easy to accidentally do. So I didn't like it because it introduced more error, and for me, this notch didn't solve any problems. Okay, so what is the best? Which is the best thumb ring out of this lot? For our shallow hook thumb ring, it really is a toss-up between the Vermeil Lantern and Turkish. And the price of the Turkish, unless I'm mistaken, has gone down since I bought it, and the price of the Lantern's gone up. So this one's now 16 bucks and this one's now 20 bucks. So I would say the Turkish out of the two slightly wins out over the Lantern, but either one will serve you well. So I'm going to leave both these out here as a tie for the shallow hook thumb ring, our Turkish and our Lantern. And for our deep hook, the Vermeil wins out on this one, just because they're comfortable and they're practical, and I think they're pretty good quality for the price. I'm going to go with the Classic. I think the Victory one, the problem that it ostensibly solves, I didn't really notice that it solved that problem for me, and it created a new problem, which was that it would get hooked on the little wings. So as far as deep hook thumb rings go, I'm going to go with the Vermeil Classic. However, in metallic, the Classic it's a big ring. It's a lot of ring. So, you know, if you're going to be shooting high poundage, you've got to go with something more robust than plastic. But if you do go with a metallic in this model, you're going to need some kind of tape to make your thumb, you know, bulkier around the skinny part or stickier around the skinny part, so this doesn't slide around on you. Okay, all right. So you don't have to go with any of these rings, but hopefully this will give you a better idea about what you're looking for. And if any makers are watching this, hopefully this will give you some ideas about stuff you could do to make better rings. Thanks a lot, guys. Cheers.